video so long.
Should be good now.
The video unavailable. Playback on other websites has been disabled.
How about now? Can you guys see me? Show me that I'm live. Can y'all see me? Oh, maybe that is it. Yeah, public. Okay, yeah, they can see me. I think it's just yours that can't see me. All right, well, somebody put, if you can't, well, I guess you probably couldn't hear me either. If you can hear me and you can see me, just type in the chat real quick. We're good? All right, y'all. How are you guys doing? Thank y'all for joining this. We're really excited about this. We're really excited about this. We're going to go over how we win consistently, how we build consistently winning DraftKings lineups. We got some slides for you guys. We're going to have fun with it, and hopefully this is something that you guys will enjoy and really take to heart and use to help you in your DraftKings performance. So Attilio's monitoring the chat. If you can't hear me or can't see me or anything like that, well, I guess if you can't hear me, you couldn't hear me say that. But type in the chat if anything's going wrong. Just let us know, and he'll let me know. So we're going to get started. Riley's here with me. He's going to talk on some points too. And we're just going to kind of start off with my backstory. So my fantasy sports backstory. I've been playing fantasy sports since I was 8 years old. My dad came home one night and he was like, "Hey guys, we're going to try this new thing called fantasy football. We just drafted up at work. I've got a team. Here's here's who we have. Here's how it works." And we just got super pumped up about it. It was Terrell Owens' breakout year, and back then the site was so slow and there wasn't any waivers. So we're sitting there watching Terrell Owens have this big game. We're like, we want him on our team, and we're trying to get our internet to pull up, which was taking about 10 minutes to load. And we're just so anxious that nobody else picked him up, and we got him, and he had an awesome year. And that was just so fun. And then I'll never forget whenever it was either like the semifinals or the championship, and we had Joe Horn on our team, and it was Monday Night Football, and we needed him to have a really big game, and he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns, pulled the cell phone out from underneath the goalpost, and I'll never forget that night either. And then another one that really bought me into it was my dad. He told us that we should draft LaDainian Tomlinson his rookie year out of TCU, and we drafted him, and we were watching that first game for the Chargers, and he just was running wild, and we're like, this guy's awesome. He became Riley's like favorite player in the world, and just all those different things. And then my sophomore year of college, they came out with FanDuel, and I was like, this is so cool. This is a great idea. If one of my guys gets hurt in season long, like I can just play right now this game. Who's going to do the good this game? And then I was like, whenever you're playing season long fantasy football and you're playing against some team and he's got Le'Veon Bell and they're playing against the worst defense in the league, and you're like, Le'Veon Bell is about to go off so hard on me, it's going to be crazy. And you can just go put him in your daily lineup now, and at least if he shreds you up in your season long, you win some money from him in your daily league. So I just thought it was genius. I think it's the coolest thing ever. I love sports. I love watching sports. I played sports forever growing up. I'll talk to you about sports forever. I'll argue with you about sports forever. It's so fun. So that's kind of my backstory on it, how we kind of got here. And I wanted to show you and you guys, a lot of y'all are on the page, so you see us posting wins and stuff. I just wanted you to know that we're not just a bunch of goobers just acting like we know what we're talking about. We really do think we have strategies and we have concepts and we have the data models built to help you guys win consistently on DraftKings like we do. There's some in there for football, there's some in there for golf, there's some in there for basketball. On the page, there's some in there. So, yeah, just to kind of show you, like, there's one day that we got first place in every contest in tennis. That was cool. So we really do feel like we know what we're doing, we know what we're talking about. We just want to give you guys a little bit of credibility, so we're not just you don't think we just pulled some stuff out of thin air and are trying to talk to you guys about it. So, what we're going to cover is how to make money in DraftKings, even if you don't have time to track or watch sports all day. I used to work from about 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and I still was playing DraftKings. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the things with that, and then how to win big contests, even if you're playing small amounts. That's very, very critical as well. And then how to consistently stay net positive and grow your DraftKings account. So those are the topics we're going to hit on. I hope those are things that are useful to you guys and that you'd like to learn about. And the first thing that we need to talk about is we need to talk about how you need to know what your goals are in DraftKings and know what your budget is. So, are you just playing for fun and looking for a big win, and the money you're playing with is not a big deal if you lose it? Like, for golf, for example, most of the time the contests are $5 entry and it's $100,000 to first. But then when the Masters was going on, the contest like doubled in size. It was 4 times the entry amount, and now all of a sudden it was a millionaire maker. If you're playing it kind of that way, where you just want to watch the big events and give yourself a chance to win $1 million, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's a strategy, and that's a strategy to know that that's how you're playing. Or for me, I mean, I'm viewing it as an investment, and I'm okay with not taking down some huge win and pulling this money out so I can go do other things with it. I'm viewing it as an investment, and I'm okay with just a long-term goal of consistently growing my account by positive percentages over time. And the other question is, what is your bankroll right now in DraftKings? And then how much money, if any, are you willing to add to your account now on a monthly basis in the future or as a lump sum in the future? So those are just questions and things that you need to know and that you want to have mapped out before you really start tracking this hard and really start trying to put in, hey, the strategy of how I'm going to build this account consistently over time. So I also want to just kind of touch on real quick how we got to our strategies, our data models, etc. As I mentioned, we've been playing DFS consistently since it first came out. I've always been a numbers guy. Back whenever I was real young and playing fantasy football, I'd have these notepads and I'd go buy like 6 fantasy football magazines, and I'd get my calculator and I'd average out all these different experts' projections on all these different players, and I'd build my own rankings list, and I'd do it all that way. And then I learned about Excel, and my life got 5,000 times easier, and I fell in love with Excel, and I started building data models and on top of data models on top of data models. And so there's tons of data that are already in these models, and it's not something, they're not rigid. The other day in tennis, I saw something that was kind of emerging in the trends that I needed to make an adjustment because they were moving to clay, and a lot of the stuff that was in that model was based off of hard court. So we had to make some adjustments, and we got to watch how those adjustments work, and then we'll make more adjustments. And so I just wanted you guys to always know that the most current data on a sport that we're playing, and the best thing that we can possibly be doing to make those data models as accurate and those projections as accurate as possible is what we're going to be doing. So I wanted you guys to feel comfortable with that. And I also wanted to just mention the reason why I love playing DraftKings is because I love to watch sports. So we're not just data heads that are only going to tell you, hey, well, the data says this, so this is what you should do. That's not how we are. We watch the sports and we listen to what our eyes are seeing, and we make assumptions. We don't just use those value rankings lists as just a list where we just go straight down them and put all those people in there, and that's just that. We might just say, hey, this guy's a little bit further down the data rankings, but hey, this is what we've been seeing out of him. We might still put that guy in our lineup because we're watching the sports. We have a good feel for the sports, so feel comfortable with that too. And then finally, we developed a strategy to make sure that we're managing our bankroll responsibly and keeping it fun like it should be. There's nothing that'll make this not fun faster than if you're playing irresponsibly. So I don't want to be sitting there watching a game and some guy's doing really, really good that I don't have, and not be able to enjoy the game anymore or his performance and how good he's doing because I don't have them on my team because I play too much money on that team, and if I lose, I'm going to be really mad. I want to be able to be playing an amount that's, hey, if I lose it, it's okay. I know that I'm going to lose sometimes in DraftKings. That's just step number one. I've already admitted that. I'm just trying to win more often than I'm losing and do that consistently enough to where I'm constantly growing my account. So if you keep all those things in mind and you listen to some of these things we talk about as far as playing responsibly, you're going to have a lot of fun. It's always going to be fun for you. There's never a time that it's not going to be fun. You're going to love it. And that's the whole point of why we're doing this anyway. So I also just wanted to tell you, stick all the way to the end, because at the end, if you stick to the end, you're going to get a lineup building checklist. You're going to get an offer that we're going to tell you about that's going to involve like group coaching and learning, free access to our website. Where we're going to have all the data up there that we're using to make these assumptions and make these projections. And we're also going to give you access to the basic DraftKings accounting tool that you're going to want to become familiar with if you're going to be playing kind of the responsible way that we're talking about. So those are all awesome things. We think you'll love all of them. So stick all the way to the end to be able to take advantage of that offer. So here we go. Before we get too deep, I want to start with the most important step, and that is whether it's on your phone or if you have a piece of paper and a pen handy, whatever, wherever's easy for you to do it. I want you to write exactly what your bankroll is on DraftKings right now and exactly what the budget that you're working with, if you're going to be putting more money in or not. So just add your current bankroll on DK plus the max amount of money that is 100% comfortable for you and that would not be missed and that you're willing to put in. And so those two sums added together is your new bankroll. And then I'm going to give you guys about 4 or 5 seconds to do that. As soon as this is over, I know because you have it, it doesn't have to be in DraftKings, but we want to get scientific with it. We want to always see exactly what that DraftKings account is. So we want to be able to be playing consistently the right percentages, the exact right percentages on all of our lineups that we're playing. So as soon as this is over, if you're one of those people, and if you're not somebody that has any extra money to put in, that is 100% fine. You're just going to write down what your current DraftKings balance is. But if you have some more that you're willing to put into it, then let's put it in and let's operate off of that as our new bankroll. And we'll get to it later as far as how that's going to be handy for you. But I'll give you a couple seconds to come up with that number, and then we'll move on. All right, so the first main talking point that we're going to have is how to make money in DraftKings, even if you don't have the time to track or watch sports all day and have a really good feel for the sport that you're playing. So the things that you want to make sure you have a good grasp of and are comfortable with before you enter a slate is, do I know the most current injury news or the most current injury news to monitor and any other news that affects playing time? So playing time is probably more basketball related, but it could also apply to like tennis or golf. You know, are they in question of missing the slate? Could they possibly pull out? So do you have a good feel for those things? Do you know what players exactly are the ones that are needing to be monitored? And then do you have a good feel for what the game flow of the different games on the slate would be? So do you think that, you know, from what you've seen in the series, you know, the 76ers and the Nets in game 4, Jared Dudley did that crazy thing and Jimmy Butler came and got in his face too, and they both get ejected. And it was a close game at that point. And Jimmy Butler's a much more important player than Jared Dudley is. So that was a huge advantage for the Nets. Okay. And then they go on to lose that game and lose that game handily. And Joel Embiid just dominates them. And they lost both games at home. Now they're down 3-1 going back to Philly. My feeling on that from those things I just mentioned was that was about to be a blowout game. So do you have that? Do you know what happened in the last game to where you've in the previous games in that series to where you feel like you have a really good, and it's not that you know exactly what's going to happen in the game, but do you feel like you have a good feel for the most likely thing to happen in that game? And I felt like I had a good feel for the most likely thing to happen in that game was that it was going to be a blowout. So that's a good question to ask yourself. And then the key to being successful without having the time to follow the sport, the way we mentioned above, is what resource do you use to keep you in the know? So whenever I was working till 10 o'clock at night, and I mean, the two main tools I use, my two resources were the timer on my phone, the alarm clock on my phone, and I'd set it 20 minutes before the slate was going to start. And then it was Twitter. So in the morning, before work got going, I'd write down, hey, these are the guys that are questionable as of now. I'd make that list. And then when that timer went off on my phone, and I'd have my lineups already made in the morning too, and I'd do a lot of my research before I went into work. And then when that 20-minute timer went off on my phone, hey, it's time to go to Twitter, search this player, and I'm looking for a confirmed answer from a verified source that, hey, this guy is playing, this guy isn't playing. And I just want to mention right here, we don't want to play slates where a high percentage of people in the contest might have better information than us. So if you don't know and you don't have the time to catch up with your resource, just simply don't play the slate that night. I know it kind of sucks sometimes 'cause you're like, man, I would have played that guy. I would have played that guy when they go off. But just that's a responsible thing to do. If you don't think you're gonna have the time to make sure that you're right, if you don't think you're gonna have the time to catch up before the slate locks, just don't play in that. Just don't play in that slate. And then if later in the day it opens up to where you might possibly have the time to check it, then okay, now do I have the time to get everything going before it starts? Yes. Okay, now I'll jump in. And I'm just going to use tennis as an example because it's played all over the country. So there's times where it'll start at 2 o'clock in the morning our time. There's times where it'll start at 4 o'clock in the morning our time. And so this tournament right here in Barcelona, that's one of the 4 tournaments that's going into the DraftKings slates they're offering this week for the tennis slates. And so in Barcelona, they're starting about 5:30 in the morning our time. And so on the second day, Fabio Fognini he'd had a bye in the first round, and he had just won the Monte Carlo tournament the week before. And the Monte Carlo tournament's a ATP Masters 1000 tournament. So it's other than the majors, it's the highest prize pool, it's the most ranking points. So it's a really important tournament. And he won it, and I think he won 5 or 6 matches in the course of a week. And by the last 2 matches, I mean, he was out there with tape on his legs, tape on his arms. I mean, he was being bandaged up out there on the court, but he was playing great and he was winning, which was awesome. But from watching that and then reading kind of my Twitter source or my tennis sources afterwards, heading into this tournament this week, it was legitimately questionable if he was going to play his first match. And so I put that in the value rankings that day. I said Fabio Fognini should be considered questionable. And so if you read that and you're like, well, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning anyway, I'll just search it then and make sure, then no risk at all. You can go to bed with Fabio Fognini in your lineup. But if you're like, there's about a 99% chance that I'm not going to be up at 5:30 in the morning, then don't take the risk of having him in there, because I woke up the next day and 22% of the people had him in their lineup. And so immediately, because he did end up not playing, and so immediately my lineup was better than 22% of other lineups. And so don't be one of those 22%. Don't even give yourself the risk. There's other good players, and I mean, I know it's like, well, what if he goes off and I didn't have him? You can't think that way. You have to just always make the smartest decision for you. You have to always put yourself in the best percentage chance to win, and that's the only thing that you can do. Anything out of that is out of your control, and you can live with it because we're going to play responsibly. So, at the end of the day, if we're ahead of or at the minimum even with the majority of the field on our understanding the most likely occurrences on that slate, that is the foundation that we need to build consistently winning lineups. All right, y'all having fun? You getting crunk? All right, good. So to continue, how to make money. Okay, so this is still the first talking point continued. Or no, sorry, this is still the same slide I was just on. All right, here we go. So how to win big contests, even if you're playing small amounts. So I consider a contest a big contest if there are more than 100 entries in the contest. First place gets minimum 8 times their investment back, and 25% or less of the entries finish in the money. So the first thing that I'm going to look at when I'm building a lineup that's going to be in a contest is who are the must-have expensive players, or if you will, the studs of that slate. So in a big contest, I'm paying attention to my projection for that player, which is the most likely occurrence. It's not the only occurrence. I'm never going to tell you guys that whatever I project that player for is exactly what they're going to score. That's not realistic. So it's the most likely occurrence in our data's mind. So, but after I look at that, I'm going to look at the floor and the ceiling of that player. If I like the floor that I'm thinking for that player, if I like the projection that I'm thinking for that player, and I like the ceiling for that player, that is an expensive player that is a must-have in my opinion. And so then if I've identified two or three of those guys, I mean, I'm going to have some inexpensive players in there to offset my lineup. So who are the inexpensive players on the slate? And then specifically, who are the inexpensive players that have positive trends? And who are the inexpensive players that have the best chance to outscore their projections? So so I'm always looking at how many of these inexpensive guys on this slate am I comfortable with those things I just mentioned above. And then the more I'm comfortable with, the more expensive players I can fit in. So I'm more going the stars and studs, or the studs and duds approach when I'm building these contest lineups. But if there aren't many expensive players that I'm really on board with their floor, their projection, and their ceiling, or there's not very many inexpensive players that I'm on board with their floor, their projection, and their ceiling, then I'm going to look at who are the middle tier guys with high ceilings and positive usage trends. So, like, for example, Jamal Murray in, I guess that was game 5. Okay, so and that was a normal slate, so he was normally priced like his $6,300 or whatever he was. So that's a middle price guy in basketball, but I know that he's a good shooter that can get really hot. Okay, so that's one positive trend that I know. I know that if this is a good game, he's going to play more than his minutes were in the regular season and more than he's played in a couple of these other games. So that's another positive trend that I'm going to rely on. So I think that it's going to be a good game. I think he's got the ability to really get hot, and he maybe has possibility to play more minutes than DraftKings is taking into account in his salary. Then bam, that's a middle tier guy that I'm on board with. So hope that makes sense. And this is still the how to win big contest, even if you're playing small amounts. Topic continued. And this is a principle that I'll live by. It's called the 1 to 5% rule. And the 1 to 5% rule, I'll have a graphic on here for you. So just look at that graphic at the bottom. So let's just assume that that current bankroll number you wrote down earlier in the webinar was $100. So the max money I'm going to play in any one lineup total through, if I'm playing 5 contests on the lineup, I don't care. If I'm playing one contest, it doesn't matter. The total amount I'm playing on that one lineup is $5 maximum. But the preferred money I'm paying on that lineup is $1. Okay? And so the number, let's just say I had 5 lineups that I really liked tonight. Well, if I'm playing 5, I also don't want to be playing more than 8% of my total bankroll on any one slate. So if I just have that slate completely wrong, I mean, if I just mess it all up, this one guy just comes out of nowhere and emerges, and if you didn't have him, you can't cash. I don't want to lose more than 8% of my bankroll. And really, I'm never really going more than 5%. So that's responsible. So if I have 5 lineups I like, I don't want to go over 8%, then the max money I'm paying per lineup is $1.60. So I'm not spending more than $5 in any one lineup, and that's pretty much if I'm only playing one lineup, maybe 2. If I play the $1, I might go up to 5, 6, 7 lineups if I really like the slate and I feel like I have a good feel for it. But you know, that's playing responsibly right there. We have an account like a DraftKings accounting tool that will be part of that offer at the end that will pretty much do this for you. So pay attention to that. The 1 to 5% rule. I'm never playing more than 5% of my money on any one lineup. And the reason for that is like we were talking about earlier, I want to have fun with it. And I have a lot of fun with it if I do make a losing lineup and I only lost 1% of the total amount of money that I had in there. I mean, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy this whole thing. So that's the way that it stays fun for me. And the key is just, hey, let's be patient at the start. I understand that there's probably potential out there if you make a really good lineup, but you're playing smart, you maybe could have made more money. But when you didn't make a good lineup, you also could have lost more money too. So we're just going to build that. We're going to build that bankroll over time, and then that 1%, that 1% number is just going to be a bigger value as you go on and on and on and on. And eventually one day, 1% is going to be $20 or $100. And now you've got really good potential to win really big money and really low risk. So that's the whole key to this thing. And then the next kind of step is choosing the right contest. So find the contests that are in your price range that have the highest total prize pool. If one of the higher prize pools in your price range is a single entry or a low max entry contest, that is the one you want to consider because you won't have the people in there entering tons of lineups hoping for a random one to go off. Everyone will just have to enter their favorite lineup or their favorite 5 lineups, and that evens the playing field for everybody. So this is a little screenshot from DraftKings today. Let's just say I had a $100 bankroll like that last screenshot. Okay, so here's a $1 entry contest. There's $40,000 total in prizes, so that's the biggest total prizes pool in this price range. Okay, so that's a good one to consider, but 20 entry max, okay, well, that's at least it limits people to 20 and they can't do more than 20, so that's a good one to consider. This next one is a $3 contest, so I might only be able to play one lineup in that one, but if I have one lineup that I really like, I might play it in that one because it's a 3-entry max. There's only 2,700 people in there. The total prize pool isn't as high, but if I make that top 20% lineup, I'm going to get good return. And then that next one, okay, this is a $2 entry one. I could probably put 2 lineups in there if I have a $100 bankroll. And okay, there's only 1,100 people in there, but the total prize pool isn't quite as high. Okay, but it is a single entry, which I really do like that. And then, hey, here's this 50-cent one. All right, so I could play more lineups in there. It at least minimizes how many some people can put in there to 150. They can't just go put 300 in there. It's a second total prize pool on the slate. Great. And then the 25-cent one, everybody can just go put whatever the heck they want in there. It's a low investment. And, I might play in that one, but that's probably my least favorite one on there. So if I was going to play $5 tonight, I'd probably go one in that $3 and one in the $2. I'd go 3 in the $1 and a couple in the 50 cents, something like that. So look for those entry maxes and look for those total prize pools. And then, in my opinion, I like the lower entry ones the best, but I'm never going to tell you that you shouldn't play in the one that gives you the highest potential return. But play smart with it, and as long as you're playing smart with it, it's all good. And then I'm going to bring Riley in right here. This is definitely a good one to talk about and kind of explain some more strategy on. This is from the NFL season. Riley played $10 on this, and he won $8,078.84. So I just want to let him kind of talk to you guys about his strategy and what he was thinking when he was making that lineup.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Riley. I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through my thought process on how I picked this lineup. So, first off, you have to pick the right captain. And so for me, Damian Williams had just scorched the Chargers' good defense the week before. Kareem Hunt had been having a good year all year, and Spencer Ware, when he was in, he was going off. So the Chiefs' run game was phenomenal that year. So I was going Damian Williams all the way. And then, so once you have your captain in place, then it's time to pick which guys you think are going to do the best in the game no matter what. So in a game that I thought was going to be a shootout, I thought the obvious choices were going to be the 2 quarterbacks, which was Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. And then how I picked Chris Carson, I thought he was another must-play just because, the Seahawks were leading the NFL in rushing attempts and rush yards per game. The Chiefs' running defense was terrible, and Chris Carson was getting better and better as the season went on. So with those 3 things, that was a recipe for success. So I went with Chris Carson. Now, the next 2 picks, this is where it got a little bit difficult because I could either go 2 kind of cheap guys, which would have been like the kickers, and I really did not think the kickers were going to be the most beneficial in this. So I looked at the cheap guys that I could pair up with Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin took $7,800 of my $8,100 remaining salary. So I was scrolling through and I saw Sharkhandrick West. And the reason I played him is because Spencer Ware had just got hurt, and there was no way that Damian Williams was going to be able to stay in the game the whole entire time without taking a break. So I was like, Sharkhandrick West, he does have a chance to get some touches, and in football, that's what you're looking for. You got to find guys that are going to get touches in the game. So Kendrick West ended up catching a touchdown on one of his only touches of the game, which did help me win that 8,000. And it's not always going to work out like that where you have a gut feeling, but I did have a gut feeling on West and I followed it. So that helped me win $8,000. I hope that was helpful. That's how I go about making all my showdowns. I pick the guy that isn't too expensive as my captain, but that I can still fit good players around.
That's badass right there. You got to get fired up. Come on now. $8,000 on $10, and you had a gut feeling on Charkandrick West, but also what got to your gut feeling was that, I mean, you knew he had a chance. He had some positive trends, some positive things to look at going in his direction, and you just chose. I mean, you chose the right guy. So, I mean, that is badass. That 0.74% owned, and that was the difference. I mean, but he looked deep enough into it, and he had the right information, and then he listened to his gut too, and he'd seen Charkandrick West be successful in the years past on the Chiefs. So, I mean, that was awesome. And then I just want to put a couple more in here while we are on that because I kind of felt like they fit well. This is from the showdown last night in basketball. Had some good wins in it, and just kind of show you my strategies. I mean, Nikola Jokic was no doubt about it the guy that I thought was going to score the most DraftKings points in that game. So I want one where he's my captain and he's going to be in all lineups that I play because that is very critical in showdowns and in short slates too. Having the guy that's going to score the most if you think he has a potential to separate himself above the field. And then so when I went Jokic, I mean, you can still get the two guys you think are going to score the second and the third most as long as you feel comfortable with the other three guys you're going to put in there that are inexpensive. And I felt good about Bellinelli. He looked good to me. He had some positive trends going. That was a low-end guy that really helped that one lineup big time. So I'm sure there's a lot of lineups that had the other five. And then Torrey Craig, he was almost a must-play, total, solid. And then the other two, Torrey Craig was not quite as expensive as Patty, but still pretty inexpensive, so that way I could fit in Jokic, DeRozan, Aldridge, and Murray. Murray let me down a little bit in that lineup, but Patty Mills was an inexpensive play. You know, I like to have those. When I went with that cheaper captain, I got literally the four guys I thought were going to be the first, second, third, and fourth best players on the slate. And so, I mean, that's a solid strategy. I mean, I don't just have the only way that it's really worth it to have the most expensive player on the slate as your captain is if you are very high percentage chance confident that that guy is going to be the highest scoring guy on the slate. If not, that lineup is almost done. So I like being able to get multiple of the guys that I think are going to do the best. And then if I feel really, really good about an expensive player outperforming his value, I'm putting him in. So I want to hit on that real quick. And then here we go. This is the next one. This is consistently stay net positive and grow your DraftKings account. This is where it's probably a little bit boring, but this is where you really do need to pay attention. Okay. So my goal is to consistently grow my DraftKings account over time, as I told you guys. I would love the massive wins. I'm completely open to getting a huge win where I win 10x or more value or 8x or more, but it's not realistic to try to consistently finish in the top 5% of big contests. And it's just that's not a realistic goal for me to have. A realistic goal for me to have is to finish in the top. I put 50 on here, but it's more like 45% more often than not. And I know with the things that I use, the data that I use, the way that I follow the sports, I know that over an extended time period, I'm going to be in the top 45% or better of when you combine all the different contests that I play. And so since that's the case, when I was thinking about that, I made this principle right here. This is called the double up hedge principle. And the numbers in this little chart below are based off of a $1,000 bankroll. So the big contest I want to enter with my $1,000 bankroll is the $15 $100,000 to first contest. So you're going to look at this with your own bankroll, but let's just say that yours was 1,000 to make this easy. So I'm in that 15. I want to play $15. I want the chance to that 100K. And then I have three lineups that I really, really like that I want to put in there. And then, so I'm having $45 in that big contest. And I've got three lineups. So whether it's one $10 and one $5 double up or one 3 $5 double ups or a 10, a 3, a 2, and a 1, whatever it is, I'm playing a total of $15 in each, a total of $15 on each lineup in double ups as well as in the big contest. So total, I'm going to have $30 on the line per contest or per lineup, and I'm going to have total $90 entered on the slate, which, that's creeping up a little bit past that 8%. We're at 9%, but that's reasonable enough to where if I lose all 90 of those dollars, I still have $910. I'm still, huge part of my bankroll is still left, so I'm comfortable with that. Okay. So my first lineup, I've got $30 invested in it. Second lineup, third lineup. And so if I'd win $30 on each of those contests, if I don't finish in the money in the big contest, but finish in the top 47, 48% in the double ups. So the reason why I thought about this is I don't want, that's a winning lineup. When I beat more people than I lose to, that's a winning lineup. That's a good lineup. So if I hadn't played those 3 double ups, then I would have had $45 invested and I would have lost all $45 on a winning lineup. But instead, I had $90 invested and I lost $0. And I'm back at square one tomorrow where I started today. And yeah, there'll be times where you build a lineup that just sucks and you lose all your double up money and you lose all of your big contest money. So on those nights, it's worse that you played the double ups. But at the same time, when you have those lineups that do finish in the cash, then you're going to get all your money from the contest and you're going to get your double your money from your double ups. So the only way that it's not an effective strategy is if you don't feel like more often than not you're going to make a lineup that's better than half of the other lineups. If you feel confident enough to know, hey, I'm going to make a lineup the majority of the time that's better than half the other lineups, then this is a foolproof method to make sure that, because you can have a week span where you make these lineups in the big contests and you finish around the top 25 or 30% right outside of the money, and you lost all that money from all those contests, and they weren't bad lineups. But if you'd been doing the double up hedge principle, then you're still, at the end of that week, you're still exactly where you were at the start of the week. And bam, that's just fun. It makes it more fun. It makes you happier. It's nice to get on there and look, well, dang, I was so close to finishing the money. And then you look at your total entered and your total won, and you didn't lose any money, and that money's still coming right back into your account. That's awesome. That's fun. So I'd really suggest taking that principle into account and doing it. So here's another thing that my whole theory, my whole thought process on building these lineups is value and consistently keeping the odds and the value in my favor. And so I know it's awesome to just be like, well, I picked that one guy that nobody else had. Well, what I did with Sharkendrick West, but he had reasons behind it. But to pick this one random guy that you put in your lineup because nobody else will have him, and you just have this feeling that he's going to do good, and then he doesn't do anything. Like, I won't mention a name or anything, but somebody in our group the other night, he had a great lineup built, and we were talking about it and everything, and through the early part of the slate, and then it was coming up on those late games, and he ended up making some changes and put Kyle Korver in his lineup, and that was in game 3, I think. And Kyle Korver had played like 9 minutes each of the first 2 games, 9 or 10 minutes. And if you're watching the games, you kind of realize that he wasn't in there very much because Royce O'Neal was doing a really good job of playing defense on James Harden. So Royce O'Neal, the main thing the Jazz were wanting to do was stop James Harden. So that was a very negative trend working against Kyle Korver. There's a positive trend working for Royce O'Neal, but there's a negative trend for Kyle Korver. And, the next thing you know, Kyle Korver puts up 0 DraftKings points, and it kind of killed a good lineup. So I understand that sometimes I might lose to somebody that put this random guy and got it right. I understand that might happen sometimes, but I'm trying to go with the odds and the most likely thing to happen and feel confident that way. So I hope that made sense. Here's kind of the whole thought process that I have is, how many points per dollar do I need my guys to score to get to a total point total in my lineup that's got a good chance to cash? So in NBA, it's right around 300. If you get over 300, most nights you're going to be in the money. Sometimes you're going to be in the money at 280. Sometimes you're going to be in the money at 270. Sometimes it's 330. But I'd say on average, it's 300. So I'm always trying to build a 300-point lineup in the normal classic NBA mode. Showdown's different, but classic NBA mode, I'm trying to put up 300 points. So my salary cap on DraftKings is $50,000. So that means I need 0.006 points per dollar spent of my salary cap. So if I have a $10,000 player, I need him to score around 60 points to be worth the play. If he's $4,000, I need him to score around 24. In tennis, I need to score around 360 on average. So that's about 0.007. So 72 points for a $10,000 player, 29 points for a $4,000 player. In golf, I need to score about 400 points. So I need 0.008. So $80 for a $10,000 player, $32 for a $4,000 player. And it's just really important to keep that number in your mind when you're doing this next step right here. Okay, so this is what I call the floor and ceiling thought process. So am I comfortable with their projection, their floor, and do I love their ceiling? If you can say yes to those three things, that is a consistently winning player to go with the odds in your favor. So this was from Tuesday. This was that slate I was talking about a little bit earlier, where I thought that the 76ers and the Raptors were going to blow out the two teams that they were playing, the Nets and the Nets and the Magic. So here we go. So the normal projection that I had for Nikola Jokic was 54.75 DraftKings points. That's 5.9 points per dollar. So that's good for an expensive guy. Bam, that gets me pretty much on pace for that 300. And then, okay, so his floor. On basketball, I'm more thinking about the floor as it's more minutes related. Like because I'm looking at DraftKings points per minute and I'm looking at minutes. That's a lot of what's going into that projection. And so if I'm sitting there thinking, hey, Nikola Jokic, he might play 6 or 7 less minutes than he usually does. So his floor is probably only about 10 points less than what his normal projection was. And then his ceiling, though, if that's a good close game and he's hot and he's scoring a little bit more DraftKings points per minute than he usually does, he'd get up to around 64 or 65 points. So I love his projection. I'm okay with this floor because I can still cash with Jokic putting up 44 on $9,300 salary. It hurts, but it's not a killer. Okay, and obviously if he puts up 64, that is awesome. That's 7 times value. Let's rock and roll. That's huge out of a $9,300 player. So then I got to Vucevic, and he was my next highest points per dollar guy in the value rankings. But then when I considered his floor, I was like, well, I mean, he's really like a 1.3 points per minute guy usually. But so far in this series, I mean, he's been right around 1 or under 1 in all games other than 1. So also, if they're going to get blown out, he could end up playing 22, 23, 24 minutes and scoring me in the mid-20s in points. So his floor is way too low. That would absolutely kill my lineup. He's out. And it doesn't matter what his ceiling is. He's out right there and then for me. Same thing with Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook was almost a 1.6 points per minute guy, maybe even over 1.6. I can't remember in the regular season. But he had a lot of games in the first part of that series where he was getting 1.1 points per minute. And then, so his floor, based off of what I'd been seeing lately, was 44, 45, 46 DraftKings points. And at 10,200, I did not want to mess with that floor. He has a huge ceiling, so he ended up hitting that ceiling, and that was obviously awesome for him. But for me, that floor kept him from being in my lineup. And then Paul George, Lillard, Kawhi. Kawhi was kind of the same thing as far as his floor because I thought they were going to blow out the Magic, and they did. And so he didn't get the minutes that he usually would get. So that was taken into that floor account. And then Joel Embiid was the biggest one because I think he ended up being pretty low owned. And when I posted this, somebody replied and said, no Embiid on your list. And it's because I thought the most likely occurrence of that game was a blowout. Joel Embiid had played one game in that series over 30 minutes. The rest of them were low 20s. And he was questionable going into the game. His knee was hurt. They were up 3-1. I just really knew that if there was any chance at all, if they were up with a good, comfortable lead at any point during that game, they were going to be looking at opportunities to rest Joel Embiid. Sure enough, they got up big. He played to start the third quarter and then didn't see the court again. And, I mean, he has a huge upside, huge ceiling. But that floor, I mean, I want to like all three, the DraftKings points, the floor, and the ceiling. So that's the thought process that I use. I don't just go off the normal projection. I want to find who has do I like who are the guys I like their floor and I like their ceiling as well. So this is an exercise for you guys. This is an action plan for you. The next time that we post value rankings, if you're using those or if you're looking at projections somewhere else, wherever you're looking at projections, this is a projection exercise that you should do every single time. So pull up our value rankings and mark or note the 5 guys that you think have the best chance to outscore our projection, and then also note the 5 players you think have the highest chance of underperforming their projection. And then know what your reasoning is for those 5 players on each side. So your reasoning on these things should be something like playing time changes, a hot trend in a player like CJ McCollum in the regular season, he was like 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. The first 3 games of that series, he was like 1.5. Okay, the data model is going to be kind of slow to adjust to that. So that could be a legitimate reason for being able to outscore his projection. And then a difference in game flow, like we were talking about with that 76ers and Raptors, he might underperform his projection because they're going to blow that other team out, or this guy that doesn't usually see that many minutes might see more minutes because they are going to get blown out or their team's going to blow somebody else out. Like I can't remember who it was, but maybe it was Jimmy played Kim Birch that night. I mean that was a realistic play if you thought that the Magic were going to get blown out because he was very cheap and he's a productive guy. He's a high points per minute guy when he's on the floor. It never crossed my mind, but I thought that was brilliant. So any thought process can count here that you can back up with solid reasoning. And your reasoning should not be that you have a feeling. You should be able to think of 2 reasons why you think he's going to outperform or underperform. And if you can't think of 2 reasons why, avoid taking that stance on that player. All right. And so we're about done. Thank you guys so much for sticking in with us. I hope that was fun for you guys. We're thinking about putting together another course that takes kind of the principles that we talked about here today and other principles that we use and go more in depth with them. And so if that's something that is interesting to you, thank you for sticking to the end. You're going to get this. So since you stuck to the end, you get this lineup lock cheat sheet. If you registered for the course, we're going to send you that via email. If you don't get it via email, let us know. Just DM me on Facebook or something like that, and send me your email. Or if you didn't register with us and we don't have your email, definitely send that to me or Attilio or Riley on Facebook. Send us your email so we can get you that. And then I just wanted to tell you about the offer that we have. Because we are expanding this into a website and just a daily fantasy mecca for you guys to go to. So if I'm gonna make this offer right now for you guys that are live on the webinar, if you get in now, you not only get the course for half price that we're talking about going deeper, you'll also get to take part in a group coaching session. And in that coaching session, it'll be live. We'll take your questions. We'll teach things that I think that maybe you could work on, or things that just in general coaching. What questions do you have? What area do you feel like you need to work on? What things you don't feel like you have a good grasp on? It's going to be a full coaching session, just like if you're playing baseball and you sucked at outfield and you needed to get better at outfield. You'd hope that your outfield coach would know the right drills for you to work on and things like that. So there'll be a full legitimate coaching session, the courses, and then you're also going to get access to our DraftKings accounting tool, which I kind of showed you a little bit preview of earlier. Super early access to our tables on the site, our data models. You'll be able to see all the DraftKings relevant stats for all the players in these different sports that we're playing. I was in a conversation with, I can't remember who it was yesterday on Twitter on our page, or not on Twitter, on Facebook on our page. And he was asking if there was a site that you could go to where there was, all like previews of the tennis matches, stats on the tennis matches. Well, that's what you're going to be getting access to right here. And for all of those things, you've kind of got 2 different options of how you can do it. You have to go to rankfantasysports.com, and it's going to prompt you to create an account. and it'll give you two different options. The first option will be you just sign up and we're going to charge you $1, and then you get to go all the way through the live coaching sessions, everything, before we charge the rest of the $54. It's $55 total. And so you can just email us and say, hey, I don't think this is useful. I'm not going to pay the rest of the $54. So if you want to pay that price, the $55, you can kind of safeguard yourself with the $1 now. Or if you're okay with just paying the money in full when you first go in and create your account, we're going to knock the price all the way down to $35. So take $20 off for you. You'll get all of those things. And so that's really all that we have. I hope that's exciting to you guys. And I promise you guys, we're going to make those coaching sessions and those courses and our site as absolutely maximally beneficial to you guys as we can. I think you guys are really going to find it useful. My whole goal for this whole thing was to be able to be a place where people that wanted to play fantasy sports could get the information that they needed without all the fluff, just the DraftKings relevant stuff, and use the knowledge that I've gained over this time to help other people do good too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. Have an awesome night. I hope all the guys that you have playing tonight do well, and I hope you win some money. See you guys. Rod, do you want to say bye to them real quick?
Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate you, and check out the offers and go kick some butt tonight.
All right. See y'all.